Hello, I'm Danielle the Clay Lady. I appreciate the opportunity to teach you how to throw a pot on the potter's wheel. First, let's talk about the equipment. Most potter's wheels are the same. They have the wheel head, the splash pan, and a work table. They always have a switch over here to turn it on and off, and then they have some way of controlling the speed, either with a pedal or with a variable switch, and some even have a lever. When you turn the wheel on and you push the pedal, it makes the wheel go around and around. There are many speeds. You can go very quickly, which you really never need to use. And then you can go down to what I call driving down the highway, but not speeding. And then we have medium speed, which is like residential zone. And then we have slow, which is school zone. Now I will tell you that as you make your pot, you start off with the wheel going fast, and then as you progress through your pot, the wheel speed goes slower and slower. You always have a bucket of water. I put mine on the right-hand side of my work table because I am right-handed. For right-handed potters, the wheel always needs to be going counterclockwise. Left-handed potters, the wheel needs to be going clockwise. If you are a left-handed potter, you need to find the reversing switch or the reversing plug on your wheel to make your wheel go clockwise. Everything that I show will be right-handed, and you will just need to switch sides of the pot and switch your hands for every step that I show you. In your bucket of water, you're going to have the tools that you need. A basic pottery tool kit has a wooden rib. The wooden rib works at the end of the pot to help scrape some of the clay at the bottom of the pot and also off the wheel head. You also have what I call a wooden knife, and this is for trimming the excess as well, and a couple other functions that I'll show you later. You also get a throwing sponge, just a basic round sponge. They also have elephant ear sponges and chamois and all kinds of fancy things, but I think this sponge works just fine. You also have a wire tool. This is used to cut the pot off the wheel and also to cut your clay out of the bag. There's also a flat metal tool. I don't use this very often. It's used to scrape the outside of the pot to give a smoother finish. In the bucket of water, a lot of times it gets lost, especially when your water starts getting a little slippery with the clay and the water mixing together. And sometimes this will get lost. So usually I keep this in my toolbox and not in my bucket of water. You also have a needle tool that is an important part of throwing on the wheel. However, it does have a sharp edge, so I usually don't leave this in the water as well. I put a little knob of clay on my work table with the needle tool sticking in it so I don't have to worry about poking myself. There are two other tools that are in the pottery tool kit, and they are trim tools. I pulled both of these trim tools out because you work with these tools when your pot is dry, and you do not want them in your bucket of water because they will rust. So we put these aside as well. There's a couple tools that I like that don't come in a standard pottery tool kit. One is a set of pot lifts. These pot lifts work wonderfully for picking small pots off the wheel. A lot of times you'll throw a pot on a bat, and I'll show you that in the advanced techniques portion of this DVD. Another tool that I think is essential is a bubble level. The bubble level will help make sure that your wheel head is level. A lot of professional pottery studios, the floor has a slight slope to it so it can go down to a vent for cleaning. But I always make sure that my wheel is level. You level it east-west and north and south, making sure that the bubble is in between the lines for both. We also use the level for trimming, and we'll talk about that later as well. And of course, the most important piece of equipment is your clay. Your clay needs to be in perfect shape. If your clay is too stiff, you'll have a hard time making your pot. If your clay is not consistent, meaning that you've used scrap clay and you have some stiff clay and some wet clay put together, that won't work as well. If you have a pot that's collapsed on your wheel, you try to wad that up and try again, that won't work. Your clay needs to be soft, tight, and consistent throughout. When I work on the potter's wheel, I'll pull my clay just directly out of the bag and work with it. The factories that mix the clay have wonderful equipment that make the clay perfect right out of the bag. So I would suggest that you do that. However, after you throw a couple pots, you're going to have some scrap clay, and so I want to show you how to wedge your clay. I'm going to show you the ram's head wedge. The ram's head wedge is one of the easiest ways of wedging your clay together. You will wedge your clay when you have the wet and dry clay together and you want to bring them together and make them consistent. I'm going to wedge on the wheel head just for the filming of this DVD. You'll want to wedge either on a canvas covered board or on a table. Let me show you how to wedge your clay with the ram's head wedge. We put both hands on either side of the clay. You need to lock your arms, and you're going to use the whole weight of your body to push into the clay, and then you pull up. And with your hands on the side of the clay, notice how I have a 90-degree angle between the palm of my hand and my fingers. The meaty part of my thumb is going to push down and out. I will pull up, down and out, tip him up on his nose. The reason why it's called a ram's head is because after a few times of wedging, you can see it's a ram's head. There's his nose, there's his ears. When we do the ram's head wedge, we push down, we pull him up on his nose, down, up on his nose. Again, fresh clay does not need to be wedged. You can just pat it into a ball and begin. But when you are wedging scrap clay together, you'll need to wedge probably 60 to 75 times to make sure that it's nice and consistent. After you've wedged a little bit, you roll him up on his nose, bang him on his ears, and it's ready to go on the wheel. The other important thing, other than having the right equipment, is your position at the wheel. It's very important that you sit up close and tight at the splash pan. I tell my students that the splash pan becomes part of your pants because you want to make sure that you're very close. You need to be up on the edge of the seat. You cannot throw with your bottom way back in the seat with your elbows on your knees. You just don't have enough body strength to control the clay. So you want to be up on the edge of your seat. You want your pelvic bones higher than the wheel head, even if that means sitting on a telephone book. Make sure you have a stool or a chair that bring these pelvic bones higher than the wheel head. When we throw, we always have our elbows tucked in and our back hunched over. When I teach my kids, I tell them to be a squirrel. Perfect pottery position. Most people do not have enough upper body strength to just squeeze the clay and make it form. I tell my students that if you think of the clay as being the stream, you're going to become the rock in the stream. It's not the wheel and the clay against you. It's you and the wheel against the clay. So if you stay braced and still and strong, the clay will have to move around your hands, just like the stream around the rock. So thank you for the teaching opportunity. I've enjoyed teaching you some of the things I know about throwing on the wheel. If you need any further information or supplies, please contact me off my website, www.theclaylady.com.